Ready, set, go. And we're off. Thank you so much for jumping back in. This is Hambbage, and we're going to play a whole nother session or episode of Hardcore Vanilla Minecraft. Short little break. Man, how many days am I going to do that? Don't click on your top banner when you've got that fully expanded. As savvy viewers may notice, last video we ended and the same scary screen was there, so we're coming right back in again. I didn't even close the application. I hope that doesn't cause too much issue. I don't think it should. If it really became an issue, we'd deal with it, but I think we're good. So a little bit of a break for me, as I often say, it's important whether you're playing or watching or recording any kind of games like this. Take some breaks for yourself, for your own health. Your body will thank you over the months and years to come if you don't just kind of try to merge and become one with your chair or couch or bed or whatever else you're doing. You are much better off if you get out there and go. So we do kind of want these to fully finish. That was what we were checking on, and as we talked about in the last video, we're equipped here. We've got a iron hoe. We've got a golden fortune 2 hoe that we picked up on our last adventure, and I think carrots will be the next one. We're kind of going to do a little educational video here. It'll be like an after-school special. How many folks remember those? Do they still do those on TV? I kind of doubt it now. I don't know. I mean, I don't watch a lot of daytime TV as it is, but even when I do, it kind of seems like that's a different generation. It's not when I was a kid. You kind of raced home from school, and it was also the phenomenon of Saturday morning cartoons, but after school cartoons was a huge deal too. And I think there's documentaries out there. If you Google on YouTube what happened to Saturday morning cartoons, I just stumbled on one at one point, and there's very much a story. Maybe someday we'll get into that, but that wasn't really what I was talking about or planning to when we kind of got going here. You would race. Sorry, that cartoons in the afternoon after school used to be a deal. When you were done with elementary school or whatever, you get together with some friends. In my case, we had a school bus. We weren't the cool kids that could walk to school and walk home. We had to ride the bus, which is nice in the winter. But and by the time you got old enough, you would just, as long as it was sort of nice, you'd bike to school regardless. You could live 20 miles away and you were still going to bike to school. It was just one of those things. You had your freedom. You could usually go faster than the bus because you didn't have to make all the stops and all that good stuff. But when you didn't, you'd ride the bus home with some friends. You'd go to one of your guys' house. You'd get some snacks, and you would grab a comfy chair or couch and settle in to watch some cartoons. Voltron, GoBots, the Transformers. I don't know what all they had, but in the afternoon that was kind of a thing that you could do after school, and it was cool. There were also Saturday morning cartoons, and spoiler alert for the big story there, but by and large, they basically somebody formed a blue ribbon committee of well-intentioned child advocates, and they basically decided that these were basically just being used to not only market to kids without any real real redeeming, educational or anything values, but they were, um, effectively, um, just, really, advocating, or, setting up kids for trouble, because they would, one, very heavily and repeatedly market toys, and all that kind of stuff into susceptible kids, without anything, and there were, I think, some particularly predatory type commercials that were, scream to your mom and dad that you don't love them unless you get they don't love you unless you get this toy. You must have this toy, or you're not cool. Some of the stuff that we kind of now associate as, um, bullying type behavior on the internet, on cartoons, was just marketing. These were adults that were using kids to pad their bottom lines. So it was a little unseemly, as it went. I don't know. There may be other chests in that ship, but it's too tough to get to, and without having more lung capacity, we're begging for trouble. If there was going to have been a door, I think we were kind of looking at it on that side of the ship. So, it's we got what was left there, and there wasn't, frankly, a couple poisoned potatoes, some wheat, and what else did we get out of that? Some gunpowder and a pair of Frostwalker leather boots. Yeah, not our greatest haul, but to be fair, we already snagged good stuff in the last episode, so that was kind of a mop up. We were burning daylight and just needed to get home, at the end of the last episode, so we kind of tucked tail and ran, which is fun. But we'll put these few things away, come back over here, and again sing to our crops, maybe to try to get them to grow. People have all kinds of ideas on how to increase the happiness of their plants as they're growing up, and there's certainly some theory to using music to that effect. Now, I think maybe the time is right. Let's go ahead and make a double chest here, and we'll just set it outside the door here, kind of over by our animal chest, and make it for these building type supplies. We've got getting quite a supply, and we've kind of gotten in the mode of making our stone bricks and just continue to stack on. Now, through all that, we we haven't left ourselves with any stone, so we're still not real well equipped to, create a. I think we can, hopefully, this is kind of part of the intent, but hopefully we can safely operate enough to get this chest out. Put it right over here. And this is the advantage of our overhang and our lit up patio here is, we can, kind of go out in the evening and not just have to immediately worry about getting blown up. You don't want to completely forget, you're not secure there, but you're also not likely to get blowed up. Good old Stripes. Anybody that remembers that movie? Bill Murray is, kind of a lackluster soldier, and their drill instructor is, hard-nosed guy and not real happy with their progress, and along the way he's up in a tower that gets in a comedic movie. This isn't like a grisly war movie or anything, but in a comedic way, it gets blown up by a stray RPG or artillery shell or something like that, and so he gets launched up into the air and doesn't make a return until the end of the movie. But when asked what happened to their drill instructor, Bill Murray, the soldier said, "Blowed up, sir." Aye, aye. always think a little back to that movie as creepers come along and take down worlds, which they've done all too often since I've opened these up to you guys, the viewers, and I hope you are enjoying. So I think we're man, I want to go on an adventure again. I'd like to find a cave, but I'm kind of stalling in case you couldn't tell. I really want to let these crops grow, get the great hoeing experiment done, and maybe we'll do a quick round with our trees. It seems as though we did a little, better or worse, whichever one you want to call it. We didn't get as many giant trees, but it sure would be nice if one or a couple of these had a beehive and a bee nest. Now, I'm confident that in the course of my play, I've definitely used the plains biome to produce bee nests in the past. I don't think this is impossible. I think it's just a probability deal. We got to keep rolling, but it always makes you second guess. As you've started these and you don't until you get the first one, you start to kind of second guess. Hey, what's what am I doing wrong? Did I misremember? Should I be in a different biome to get these to go? But again, as I think back on it, I know I've had success in the past. So we're going to persevere. And again, wood is never a bad resource to have a little bit extra with. So is your head stuck in a leaf? We may need you someday, cows. Don't go getting stuck in a tree and suffocating or something. Man, they love these trees. He hates these cans. That's another movie that similar vintage to Stripes, maybe a little older. Again, these are the kind of movies that were already out there when I was a kid, and I was a kid when these were out. But they were the kind of movies that you'd see either at a video rental or see on TV. I know I've mentioned in the past, eclectic viewing. Well, I watched a documentary the other day, and it's probably Netflix was this one. Could have been Prime or something though, or whatever. I also search, or we'll look around on YouTube to see what they have in terms of documentaries or previously aired on various television stuff of historical type series and things like that. But recently I watched a documentary on, it's called The Last Blockbuster, I think. It's about this, largely about this woman and her family, and they, kind of, they had to make some right moves as things were happening, as the blockbuster world was changing, kind of for the last time around 2008 with the market crash, but they ultimately ended up being they were a franchisee and were the last independently operated and owned store of Blockbuster. And I wasn't worth it to me to check now, but this was a couple years old, and with the pandemic and all that, maybe that really helped them. But Bend, Oregon, that was the location, and they were still running a Blockbuster Video, and kind of interesting. For me, I'm always interested in kind of the business side of those things. Not the bottom line so much, but the various things that most people don't even think of when you're going to be a owner operator of a business. Kind of that small but entrepreneurial or um, customer facing and visible retail type business. How many things and how many different hats you have to wear. When you say, it'd be my dream to just run my own business and all that. Well, you're the plumber and you're the the IT department. You've got to go out and do purchasing, and you've got to be you're also the ultimate face of your own company. So you are forever thinking about your reputation in terms of your customers' mind, and how they view you, the experience. If you hire employees, you're ultimately responsible. Then you become HR too. You've uh, got to make sure that they're happy, that they're getting paid, but also that they're performing well, that they're doing enough to provide you value for having them around. And usually when it's a small business, you're in this is why I'm thinking of it, because I just watched the thing about Blockbuster, and certainly that's kind of one of those high school or college youthful jobs that a lot of people can relate to, because back when video stores, or even think like Disc Jockey or Sam Goody, some of the music stores that used to sell CDs or cassettes or albums or 8-track, going back through the various technologies before we all took our personal music online. Um, those would all have retail outlets, and they were jobs for kids who were first getting their first work experience. And those are some cool things for me. Movie theater was my main big job. I was a server for a while later on. I recommend everybody, if you're not a get do yourself a favor, and at some point, you may not work it forever, but at some point work a retail job of some kind, and at some point work something in the food industry, whether it's a cook, whether you're a host or a hostess at a restaurant, because you can sometimes get those earliest, um, whether you're a server, as I was, or anything where you're involved and see how the restaurant industry works, and what the people that work in those jobs both go through, and what they enjoy, what they're like, what they don't enjoy, and ultimately really how hard you have to work to do that job. Because um, I I've commented with adult friends of mine over the years that the people that all have a shared common experience of having worked in restaurants, it's never a deal about the tip. And amongst your friends, and you guys, depending, regardless of your age, you kind of pick up on it pretty quick. You've always got some friend, and they're certainly still good friends, but they're the ones that are kind of either very specific about how you break up a check. They say check, but at a restaurant, right? You eat your meal, you get a check, and if you're just going out as friends, nobody's treating everybody else. You're going to split it up, and some people are. And I think this is more personality type than anything to do with whether you worked in the food industry or not. But some people are very. I want to, in the idea of being fair, I want to be specific. And if I ordered something and shared it, or here's my entree. That was it changes over the years, but let's call it, that was $15 was my entree, and I had a couple of different sodas, and so they didn't give free refills or whatever. So instead of $6 for those, we'll say it was 8. And then there was an appetizer, and it was some nachos, and 3 people ate on that, and that was $12. So $4 a person there. All very specific about how that check breaks up. And it's that type of personality gets some flack from the people that are more like me. I'm of the type that goes, okay, I know I had an entree, that was around $15. I know I had a couple of drinks. Let's call that another. We were talking like 6 to 8, so let's just safely call that 10. And then I know I was in on an app, so only $5. and just roughly jot up and know I either slightly skewed one up, slightly skewed one down to kind of balance it out. Because sometimes your drinks, and if you're an adult and you're having beers, understand if you're getting 2, 3 beers, which are going to be 5, 6, 7, $8 a pop, depending on where you're eating, you're going to have a substantial part of the bill. Whereas if somebody is drinking an iced tea or only water or anything like that, don't go, hey, we're going to split this check even. That's rude and and unfair to the people that are not. But on the flip side, if you're going out and just kind of, as my style is, where you're making big numbers, you're not being very exact, and you want to cover it. Well, don't look at what you've done. Be honest with yourself. Don't say, "Oh, I think I only had 3 drinks," when you were getting after it. You had 5 or 6 or something. At that point, you better not be driving. Anyway, um, be very fair and do understand that when you're going through those totals, you've got to account for some tax, depending on the restaurant and the service and what items there are. Some states, can't tax food, but can tax alcohol, and may tax alcohol and food at different rates. Um, Depending on the number of people in your party, gratuity may be included at a certain percentage. It may not be included at all. Even if you're using big numbers and prone to, okay, I'll throw a couple 20s and that'll get me close, and maybe somebody breaks up a smaller bill, and you, you allocate that out amongst your friends. But everybody, the people that are like, I will gladly, as kind of a, think like Ticketmaster, right? Like I will kick a couple extra bucks in on this bill, just to make sure that everybody's good, and I'm not, for the peace of mind of knowing I'm not leaving anyone short in this. I'm going to, kind of every time just make sure that, yeah, if I'm unsure, I'll take the extra couple bucks. I don't need to be exact, and I'll just throw it in. Well, those are two different personalities. That and the I'll whip out the calculator on my phone, make sure everybody knows exactly what they need to pay to be even. Either of those types um, do well, in my mind, to have had some experience in the food service industry, because they then understand what it's like to work in a job where the majority of your pay comes from tips, not salary. I don't know that everyone is aware that the base salary of server, when you hear, debates on the news about the increasing the minimum wage or anything like that, it really doesn't have a lot of bearing on servers, because they get paid only a fraction of the actual minimum wage, because the government expects that those people will be earning tips as well. So the employer can actually pay them less knowing that they're going to get tipped. Well, in the flip of that is, if you're going out to a meal and somebody is there to provide you food, drinks, and all that kind of stuff, even if they're new or whatever, never just full on stiff a server, um, because you're unhappy about some part of a meal. And I'm not the kind of person that says you just walk away. A server will spit in your food and all that. Some of that kind of stuff happens. It may get exaggerated, but I do. I do. There's a reason why I say everyone should work in food service. You won't lightly start mouthing off or trying to show how uh, specific or exacting you can be around the food industry. If you have been a part of it, you know that some of that isn't just stories and made up stuff. Um, but that's a tangent. The main piece is that if if you're out and enjoying a meal that's being prepared and served to you in a in a nice setting that is a restaurant where you can socialize and nobody has to deal with any of it, understand that's a service and a relative luxury of being able to dine out and have people wait on you. You're paying for that. It's like a movie or anything else. You are um, you are being provided an experience on the efforts of others. And when you're at a particularly nice place, they may screen and have higher expectations of their servers. They may have less turnover, and at the truly top end restaurants, the servers are accomplished and well deservingly proud of their accomplishments, and they may have been serving at a particular restaurant for 10, 15, 20, 30 years, and not just the tired mom and pop. They've never been able to do anything better. They choose to be there, and they make very good livings doing so. Then you get into sommeliers and people that have a particular knowledge base that they bring to that and will offer it to you to reflect that in your gratuity. That's how they're making their living. So understand that and reflect it. That being said, you'll occasionally hear you should um, never report that you were unhappy with a meal or anything at a restaurant. If you do, cooks, servers, all that, they're conspiracy. They're gonna do terrible things to your food. We all can guess what some of those are, but we don't need to get into the details. But there's certainly a mentality that says that's possible and ever kind of present when you're dining out. Well, I kind of firmly believe in a mix of that. I think that you need to be respectful and show your appreciation of service, good or bad, even the worst service. That person is there as a part of their job to take care of you. So, um, you know, just turning around and walking out, and I've seen it. It's one of those deals. But when you act indignified and kind of blow something up in an experience as a justification not to tip, you're kind of scumbaggy at that point. Let's not go out to dine, and if you've found that you've had so many experiences that you can count on one hand more times that you've had a real issue dining out, I think maybe let's start looking at what those expectations are and adjust, kind of have a sliding scale and adjust them. You're not going to get the same experience at an Applebee's as you are at a what's a kind of a high end national type or international type restaurant. You know what I'm talking about. If in your metropolitan areas, if you're lucky enough to be in one, or at a country club or something like that, whatever the fine dining options are around you, where you would go for a celebratory, nice once a year, special occasion type meals, those expectations are different than the expectations you're going to have at a place where you're ordering off a menu and they're turning a couple dozen tables per server each night. You can't expect that person is going to dedicate nonstop attention to your table and constantly just loop back and back and back when they're trying to get others. The very best can manage that and make you feel like you're their sole focus of attention, but just temper those expectations a little bit. Now at that really fancy place that could be anything, but is usually fairly independent, privately owned, or a part of group. A lot of times the higher end restaurants will be owned and have their primary backing by a restaurant group, but they'll all be independent menus, run by the local chefs. If you're in that kind of an experience, they're to get a top end type chef like that, they're going to demand a certain amount of control. They don't want corporate food that's it's being shipped out. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just different experiences, and the different prices and everything reflect that. But you all, as a customer, you have to know what experience you're signing on for, and you should understand that the service will be reflected accordingly. And I think everybody's understanding that the person behind the counter at a McDonald's, or even a Five Guys or a Noodles and Company, or a Qdoba, some of that fast casual type food. The people that are preparing food for you, and maybe at most carrying that out to you for a little placard at a table where you grabbed your own dishes and silverware and that kind of stuff and sat down wherever was available, is a different beast than what you would find in a sit down fancy deal. And if you were planning a special birthday party or wedding or anniversary dinner or anything like that, where you were going to one of those high end places, you can actually go in advance and say, hey, I'm going to have a really special deal. It's meaningful for me. Maybe you're thinking about proposing to a girlfriend or a boyfriend, or whatever your case is, or something like that. And you go in and you talk to the manager in advance. You say, hey, this is going to be a big deal. If you don't mind, I'd like to pre-order a dessert and have you wait 15 minutes until after. Maybe I'll pre-arrange a sign with my server to let them know when we're ready for that. Whatever. There's ways that you can even enhance that service more. But again, they're all different circumstances warrant different behaviors and different levels of gratuity. But at every level, understand that those people are working and they're for you and to serve you, and a little bit of appreciation for that goes a long way. And that was my best efforts to fill a window of time where we're just really hoping that these stupid carrots will grow up. Come on, carrots. Normally, if we're in this kind of situation, I would I'd just go ahead and do it. And the beets are mocking me because we have 3 rows. They're almost completely done, and they're pretty much ready, but they behave differently with fortune. So I'm not in a real hurry to do those either. It's kind of a mess. Now, have we been down in this cave yet? Not much of a cave. Good, because I think since we're waiting and I'm just complaining and getting frustrated about it, let's maybe just start a little terrain mapping for our animals. We want to fill in this lake. Like I said, I think this little cove will kind of be our animal crossing spot. We won't just try to cramp them right on top of our crops, and we'll definitely go down a few layers so that we can make the most of our. Whoa, where did you come from? I was kind of looking at cows, and the next thing I knew, there was a guy there. He looked very unfriendly. You're still coming. Just like a chance to pick up my shield, sir. Go hide behind this tree. Oh, he's still coming. Dang it. Ha 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 ha. Boop. Ha 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 ha. Boop. All right. So again, we got the banner and the curse. And last time we forgot, and I owe you guys this. So it's bad omen. Not. I think the advancement is voluntary exile. We can check that too. Advancements. if we would even have that yet. It's here. Lock, projectiles, diamonds. We got all those. Huh, I thought maybe you have to heal the villager first. Where's the trade and all that? Oh, we haven't traded yet. Well, no wonder. And there, I think once we trade, then this may open up and give us the option to get an advancement for getting this effect. I think that, oh, there it is. There. So we'd already gotten one. Voluntary exile is the advancement. And the raid captain was the guy we just got with the banner. So he's gone, and as we've already covered, we'll now run back in. We will drop our banner off, so we got a couple of those, and then we'll just have a sip of milk here. Because, milk that you've left in a just a unrefrigerated chest for days on end is tasty. I bet it's kind of got some chunks that are catching between our teeth there. Ew. The good news is, we could effectively get set up with a bow now. We wouldn't be so short on arrows that it would be completely worthless. As I have said along, I think we do. I really, kind of feel like it's a waste until I'm 40 to a full stack. And the reason I say that is when I'm out and adventuring, a full stack is a bit of a self-troll, because then if you kill skeletons, you're just going to overfill your inventory as you go. Like bees? Pig. What? Can we... I was going to get ladders at some point. Why don't I just hang on to the ladders? Let's see. What more can we talk about here? You guys have excitement planned for your weekends? As I've mentioned a couple times now on other videos, it's been kind of the tougher side of spring weather. When you're kind of done and ready to move on from winter. I do love winter, but when you're getting ready for warmer weather and all those kinds of activities, it's tough when the April showers that you're waiting on for May flowers are falling and keeping you kind of indoors, and when those showers then turn into snow and it's chilly. It's not cold. Usually you come out of winter, you're still kind of used to that really colder weather. And I'm not saying we've got that, but it's once you've had a taste of 60s and 70s pushing up to 80, and you get those first couple days where you're out in shorts and a t-shirt, and what? Why do I need to have a sweatshirt, ready to go? And then you go back to it's rainy and wet and cold, and you do need to, have maybe a backpack with a raincoat or an umbrella and a sweatshirt in case it gets breezy or cool, all that kind of stuff. You're just like, oh, I'm done with it. Get me on to new stuff. Well, not quite yet. All right, we're so all over the place. This started as animal preparation, and I then after running into that raid captain, I needed to get more milk. Totally forgot about what I was doing and just started on to other things. So how far back do we think we should take this? I think we fill in there, kind of go here, have just kind of a couple of wide steps in between our fields and our animals. No real rhyme or reason, but I think we'll have enough room down here. we can fill in, we can, level that out, and then maybe we'll just do, kind of cows and chickens on one level, and then if we need more for pigs or sheep, we can push down a whole other section. Now, the flip of that would be if we do that, we'd have to go down quite a ways. I don't think that's a real problem, though, is it? Yeah, we'll be alright. Let's come over here to get our access. Now, who is that? Another pillager, or is that a trader? Now that I know I need to trade with those guys. After all the villages we visited and all that, I just was sure we bought something along the way. Guessing something's down below us. So there must still be more caves to see. There are other worlds than these, gunslinger. Well, at least use what dirt we've gotten from here to start filling in the hole. And I think I mentioned, definitely try to get the overhangy stuff done first. It gives you a better feel for what you're gonna have left to deal with, and less shade. With the water, it's kind of silly, but any of those overhangs could become little refuges for the various mobs that don't like the sun. So get them dealt with. Okay, that's what we had. Still think we're gonna level all this and make it our first terrace for animals. Oh, there you are. Hey, you were a librarian. Again, technically we had a name tag. We could have made a hole. We could have shaded that guy to keep him alive. Here's the cave we were talking about. And done our best to keep him going until we could get a potion together to heal him up. And we would have had a librarian who, in addition to potentially giving us good trades, would have also been grateful to us for his recovery, would have given us a really good price on those kinds of things. So some possibilities there, but by and large, at some point we're going to need to heal one villager just for the advancement. But I've never found it's been particularly worth it to try to maintain your villagers and get them set up. Usually in my own playstyle, I find that I'm ready for the villagers and making the outpost as we did in the last world well before I'm ready to do the recovery. So I basically have to repeat the whole process to get the benefit. And as you saw, we had so many emeralds that we basically buy through the amount of materials that we need before we ever get it. Now, my worlds personally haven't quite gotten to the level where I've ever needed that comprehensive video trading hall. I don't think most ever do, but I mentioned his name several times. You may know him yourself, but John Bams, the Big Dumb Builds hardcore vanilla Minecraft streamer, he as a big dumb build. Again, not practical, but as kind of his shtick, built a villager trading hall that had every single profession and every single type of trade um, in one building, and then he arranged real zombies into little trenches around them so that he could effectively first infect and then cure all the villagers and ensure that each of them were at a low price. Well, that you know takes a lot to get to it, and is it ever really worthwhile? I don't know, but when you always have name tags, for instance, or redstone, or any number of things at a very cheap price, it becomes pretty cool for a long term world to just have resources at your fingertips. But a lot goes into it, unless your version of entertainment is talking over that kind of activity. You're asking a lot. Now, I'm saying that knowing that I've basically been talking over an episode where I'm by and large stupidly waiting for some dumb carrots because I just started an episode with 2 hoes in my pack that I could throw in a chest. We could go have an adventure and be done with all this. To that end, I know we're working on our animals, but we need to deal with that cave to that effect. Let's check our. I don't think we've talked quite that long. Yeah, no, we got loads of time. We're still early in this episode, so we're gonna put our hose away. We'll admit temporary pause. We're gonna load up on our torches. We're gonna take these arrows. We're gonna make more, and we're gonna make a bow. And we're going to go clear out that cave. We just either had seen previously and hadn't gone any further down that drop off than we had just in this last little visit. Or the new cave that we discovered, whatever it really was. We know there's a creeper in there. We know we need to get it cleared out so that we don't have to listen to zombies or skeletons once we have animals. We don't want our animals to be scared, right? It would be scary if you were an animal and you constantly had to hear monsters moving around under your feet. It'd be terrifying. Don't want that. So, on we go. Now, by this point, the creeper will have despawned. We'll be back to the Enderman. He was there, I believe, the last time we were down here. Maybe it was a different one. Cautious, but undeterred. Okay. Close. Let's move this. Okay. So, those torches were unusually close to one another. All right. In the tradition of, as I say, trying to go up first, we definitely want to get back in there. Man, whoa! I knew he was around somewhere. Let's regroup. As I was saying, in the tradition of trying to clear above, that's why, because and he sizzled, so he didn't drop right on top of us. That's the bigger risk. But yeah, when creepers come raining, it's no good. Man, the Endermen have been all over putting their little dirt blocks down in here. Alright, another little lava channel that help maybe keep us safe. Lots more out that way, but I think let's go see what that source of creepers was right by Look at this, another tier. Haven't yet, at least, seen a whole bunch of coal. That again, at the moment, is our top priority within caves. Let's go a little bit playing the squirrel game from Up, I think was the movie. Alright, what can we do about getting you guys to follow? Nothing. Always. Ooh, alright, you guys go. I'm not the best. Oh, man. Here you go. Get him. Get him. Go back and get the skelly. He's shooting you. I'm not shooting you, man. Oh, now we get the spider. Getting too much. Retreat. Get some food. my sword swinging. Dang it! The sword swinging finger was stuck against my keyboard. Oh man! Come on. We're gonna golden apple it. There's times when you just get the feel that the game is kind of challenging you. That man, all of a sudden a skeleton is just right on you. You can't shake. And I've alluded to that sense that the game at various stages will decide that you're due for a challenge, and I think maybe we were designated as due there, but this is what I'm concerned about at the moment. We need to kind of deal with this overhang before we can deal with the big room, because the last thing you want to do is charge in and try to deal with a space like that and then find that you're cut off from your retreat. Oh, there we go. Okay. See, this is why. Because you're in here. Oh. I was headed back to him. That was a mistake. Alright. Well, at least now this is safer. Since we're up here, we're not going to spend a lot of time. Let's get... We're still getting... So this is still the absorption that's going from our golden apple that we ate. So it really did give us a benefit where we can absorb some of the damage that was coming. And when we were getting what seemed to be speedy skeleton arrow damage, it was just, so often, I know myself and I've heard other people comment on it, you hold on to things and then you end up dying and you're like, man, once again I died with some really good kills. See how fast those arrows are coming? Now, if that's not multiple skeletons, what's up, man? We've got a real disadvantage. I'm not still up in the air. Maybe it's because we picked up the bow. Maybe that's why they've kind of become so mean to us. I have kind of wondered if maybe we got a source of skeletons around here somewhere. This world certainly seems to have a propensity for spawners. Maybe we got some more. Definitely a large space here right below kind of our the bluffs on either side of that bay we parked our boat in after our last adventure. Gives our home here a little more character, I think. Okay, well, that seems to be a nice venture into our danger zone here. More than I anticipated when we got started in this cave. Let's make our steps go right to where I had a torch placed. Never did. So maybe we were just getting more of a skeleton spawn cluster by chance, because it certainly doesn't seem that they're continuing now. Okay, so this may get out towards our beach area. This lava is actually what's going down into that lower room. You know what? I kind of decide on the fly. I don't have a hard or fast rule. A lot of the lava I do like to keep, as a single column, especially if it's flowing down and dropping like that. I'll keep a single line and just put some stone around it so that it doesn't spread out on the ground. It lets you move around enough. But go with other times, you don't have to keep all the lava. And there's no rule that says if you don't keep 75% of the naturally occurring lava in your world, you're going to be a bad person or not respectful of what the game spawned initially. If something strikes me as being particularly nice looking or something, I'll keep it. Or if I think I can build around it or something, for sure. But when you've got loads of caves like we do, and lots of places to explore into, I personally feel you don't have to keep each and every one that you come across. I would guess that's how a lot of people play. I went through a phase I think a lot of people do. Every time you see lava, you want to get rid of it. It's it could burn me. I gotta get all that out. But you lose a lot of light that way. If you have occasional lava springs, that definitely can be handy. As you're out exploring and stuff, you can just throw some junk into those to clear it away, and not have to worry about stepping back over it and picking it right back up again. So, good stuff. In this case, drop a seed and a piece of dirt, although we're frankly trying to apply more dirt up above our heads here. So this is exactly the time to just go deleting dirt into lava, but we'll see. But this is actually why we wanted to go caving, as stated previously. We wanted to stock up on coal, and we really haven't been too stocked up in the past, even compared to that more developed second world that we lost. We had gotten loads of coal in our diamond explorations and the caving that we'd done in there, and it has two good functions about this point in the world anytime that you're playing. As we've seen, we've got a bank of furnaces that are not set up yet, and because they're at the bottom of the stairs, and because when you have a bank, you're primarily going to be using those for converting or preparing building materials, as opposed to just cooking a stack of iron or some gold or food or anything like that. So it just keeps going. This is so in that sense so cool that we've just gotten a world that is full of goodness. Hey, dumb skeletons. One of them had a magical boat. Oh, that's cool. Now what I don't know is whether they have a means to climb up yet. Let's fill these couple holes. I keep worrying that he's gonna get up on me, get in my business. Get out of my business, Enderman. Okay, now the skeleton, if he's still aggro, he's got a chance to climb up. Let's let him see if he's interested. Yep. Okay, this is better. Now he'll try to. Oh shoot! Oh, this is bad. Come on. Out we go. Ah, so bad. I knew it. I didn't have anywhere to go that I could really get safe from him, and he'd already gotten shots in. Oh man, nuts. Ah, bummer, 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 bummer. Let's kind of think back here while it's fresh. That the intent was to get to not have to drop down into the dark to fight that skeleton with the enchanted bow. We were concerned about that. What I to be really safe, what I should have done was gotten some kind of a, even if it wasn't, even if I didn't need to use it to fight, prepare a panic room. And by that I mean something that's only 2 blocks high like this, where you can go into and the Enderman can't just hit you. If I even had one chance to eat a golden apple, I could have survived it. But knowing that he had already got one shot on me, and then as I was running, looking, as I was going there, I was looking to see if I had anything that I just accidentally happened to set up. But there wasn't. I'd kind of known as I'd gone along that I didn't have anything. So, um, trouble. I kind of alluded. Some of those skeletons were just rapid firing, hitting, and you sometimes will just get the feeling out of the game that it something ratcheted up a level. Our level had gotten up high, and it kind of outpaced our gear a little bit. We were only in unenchanted iron, and that can be trouble, right? You're geared up for a beginning level playthrough, but until you've then got diamond and enchantment, and again, maybe that was the mistake. We were sitting on 11 diamonds, I think. So not 9 to use, 2 for an enchanting table, and that could have been a shirt. That could have been hats and boots, or hat and boots. Certainly could have been a sword. That wouldn't have helped us particularly in this situation. So there's always stuff we could do. Man, I loved this world. This one was so cool. I am going to, let's see, where are we at on time? Only an hour in. Let's, while we're up here, let's do I'll have you guys hang out while we, I never updated the version there. Sorry, this is totally not helpful to you guys. I want to window capture. That's the one. Okay. So here we go. Death scores. Let's just centralize. Well, I'm trying to guess where irrelevant stuff's going to be as we fill this out. So several times said before, we want to um, make sure that as we die, we're learning from it. And this, this was one that I haven't died to a combo like this in quite a while. Usually that's not it. I don't know. It seemed to be moving backwards a little bit in the recording world, but we will persevere. This was Elcano, and since we've got time here before we wrap up, this will be a fairly short episode, but we will talk about why I named it that, because I do think it's pretty significant. So lost my. Now I forgot. 1927. 1927. Pretty awful. Yeah, when I'm not recording, worlds go a long, long way, or at least they get to about this kind of level before we go. Now this was, we'll call it Enderman Skelly combo. And, okay, that'll make sure that unless you guys remind me, maybe down the road, if you come back years later, some of these kind of things, you're like, well, where, was that down in the Nether or something? Endermen and skeletons can both be there, but hopefully that'll remind us that, like I said, this wasn't a real common situation, and with just a couple of different factors, could have survived it pretty well. So we need the day. So we'll go into spectate briefly. We'll check the day, which was 79. Kind of falls into that that range I talked about. 60s to 70s, where the challenge ratchets up a little bit, and I think all that coal that we were just grabbing kind of helped push us. Yeah, well, whatever. That's part of the fun of the game. We'll have a different world. We'll have all kinds of new adventures coming up in the next one. Let's save and let's get that out of our faces here. Now that it's part of the record. Whoosh, up through the air. Yeah, burn, Skelly. Watch, we're gonna. I bet if we come down here, we'll see a bee nest in here. Just a laugh game. Oh, well, that's too bad. Never got our own bee nest to pop. I was hoping to come over here and say goodbye to Haymarket, but I guess we're not going to be able to go that far. It's too bad. Our fields were nice. We had those nice stone bricks to frame down. Had some good talks in this world. A couple that got a little ranty on my side, but all fun to kind of work through. I know, we all kind of chew on things in our own way, in our own heads. So hope you'll bear with me and find some of those. Yeah, that's how this one ends. So Elcano, we'll look down on what we had here. We'll just talk quick and then we'll go. Elcano, when I was looking for names for this world, I didn't have anything too particular in mind. I cracked open an atlas and I was just paging through, like, oh man, maybe I'll find a city or an island or something that's random, and I'll pull up some correlating stuff. I can learn a little bit. I'll have a batch, and I may do similar stuff in the future. Certainly, the books and all that are fertile or sources too. But that was one. Well, I was kind of looking at it, and it just occurred to me. I was like, what would be a cool idea? Why don't I get the places or the the ports, a lot of them were unpopulated, but the islands or whatever, where Magellan landed when he made his first circumnavigation of the globe. At least first in our historical record. Um, there's some debate as to whether the Chinese had done it previously. They're random dude from Madagascar may have, made it been particularly, prodigy at making his own boats out of local materials and just, he could fish with the best of them. He could nail it, and he just happened to set it up well enough that he had good storage for for fresh water and got real lucky and made it. We'll never know. And as we joked at one point, if I was ever going to circumnavigate the globe, I think I'd try to kick for somebody to get me to the North or the South Pole, land, take about 20 steps in any direction, and then walk a circle around the point, and you've circumnavigated the globe in the most efficient way possible. You just didn't do it close to the equator, right? So it gets a lot quicker to do it that way than it does as what we would typically describe as a nautical or Magellanic circumnavigation. So um, I decided, I was working in that. I ended up pulling up, Wikipedia and some various maps and websites and things like that, and was plugging my way through. Well, I think not everybody knows, and I guess I shouldn't just throw it out there, but if you're not aware, um, Ferdinand Magellan was a Portuguese. I don't know if navigate. The Portuguese made a industry out of navigating, but he was a ship captain. He was an accomplished sailor, probably of a gentleman type class, and he, like, very similar to Christopher Columbus, came out of this Portuguese um, background. Columbus mixed Italian with Spanish and the Iberian culture, of expansion. But for Magellan, he grew up in Portugal, and Henry the Navigator was the monarch. He had earlier, I'm not sure if he was still on the throne at that point, but he had created this almost nautical college, you may call it, or a concentrated and an intentional effort to expand their trade empire by exploring the globe. And largely they focused on going around Africa. They were, on the Atlantic side of the Iberian Peninsula, shared with Spain, and they could just, go straight south, right along the western edge of Africa, and they, over the course of decades and what amounted to a century and a half or so, kind of wrapped their way all the way around, and eventually they really did have footholds in India, in Indonesia, and Asia, even Japan briefly. All those various cultures varied in their, in time and between, compared to one another in their receptiveness of contact with outsiders. But through force or cajoling or just negotiation, they would, get access to build a fort or a town or something along the coast in various places, and kind of created this trade network of their own where they could, they knew Macau, or some of those various cities could, um, they would, have an established, not necessarily military, although they had to be able to defend themselves. They're alone and isolated on the far end of the world, but a permanent, semi-permanent settlement, and they would trade with locals, and obtain spices. It was the large one, but whatever the produce of those particular areas were, and then Portuguese ships would go between them or make the full journey all the way around. But they would kind of move European goods out and bring back good exotic goods from the far sides of the world. Lots of history around that, and as you guys may guess, I really enjoy history, so I'd like to talk about that kind of stuff. But I stumbled into more Magellan stuff than I'd really looked at in a long time, unintentionally. I had no real inspiration other than flipping through the atlas, and as I'm looking at pages of the Pacific, and like, oh, maybe just random Pacific islands or something. I was like, oh, that would be cool. Let's kind of see if does Wikipedia have a list of all the places that he stopped on the way? Sure enough, they did. Well, one of the first thing I kind of noticed was that at the very top it talks about how in Spain and Portugal it's really largely referred to as the Magellan Elcano circumnavigation, because as many people know, or if you didn't, spoiler alert, Magellan didn't make it all the way around. He, like the vast majority of the people that set out, around, just over 250, I think, left initially, and um, 16 or 18 or so made it back on the one remaining ship to Spain. Sorry, Spain, and they were the backers of the mission. And um, of those 16, Elcano was the promoted to be the captain. When all the others had either killed one another or died off, or there's a lot of tragedy. It's kind of if you made it into a movie, it would be a bit of a horror story, really. It was such a feat of endurance and perseverance in the face of just primo example of getting in over your head. You talk about you lose a world here, you push too far without too much. They had vastly underestimated the circumference of the world, and they thought the tough part is going to be getting around South America, and the Straits of Magellan bear Magellan's name for having found these through the course of a lot, long period of going up every major river channel, towards the tip of South America, and finally finding two that connected and got them all the way around to the Pacific. So good on him for that. They weren't prepared for the ferocious storms and the cold of the extreme southern tip of South America. They weren't prepared for the breadth of the Pacific. They had, and this wasn't their fault. A lot of these things were nobody. It wasn't like other people were like, dude, man, you should really think about this. You got about 10 to 12,000 more miles of ocean than you're planning on. Nobody really knew. Ancient Arabic astronomers, in particular, had a much better calculation of the circumference of the Earth, and then the classical Greeks kind of shrunk things down a little bit through their calculations, and it wasn't until much later that Western Europe corrected the error of its ways, and it's a cautionary tale about getting entrenched in ways of thinking that then prevent progress. Anyway, that's a detour. So, Elcano was the name of this world. Inadvertently stumbled upon when I just happened to start looking into the Magellanic circumnavigation. But what I discovered, I was kind of reading through, in Wikipedia, you got to take everything with a little bit of a grain of salt. But there was a comment in there, and I don't know how long ago it was, but it said Portugal, the Philippines were planning to commemorate the various landing spots of Magellan for his quincentennial, I think is. I may be dropping an important part there when you start counting it out, but for the 500th anniversary of his landings, and it said spring of 2021, and I'm like, it's the spring of 2021 right now. I wonder when that was written. And I was like, well, when were these dates? And fortunately, as opposed to a lot of these other things, this is kind of why we have a historical record between Prince Henry the Navigator. He was a prince when he started and became the monarch of Portugal. He really began this idea of captains of ships would almost secretly protect their charts of little harbors and their knowledge. They passed on to their sons, or, if a couple different sailors got together, they would share their knowledge so that they knew. But, if you knew it, if you sail straight west from this point of land for 3 days, you will come to a harbor or whatever, all those kind of little secrets. That wasn't common knowledge because you're protecting your livelihood, right? If you can trade faster between two cities than somebody else can, or you have less likelihood of running your ship up on a barely submerged bunch of rocks, that means that you're going to make more money, have better life for your family, all that good stuff. So it was generally very secretive. If you went somewhere new, you didn't go, advertising about it as we think of Columbus and everybody else. Those all became instilled in the whole culture. Until that time, you didn't do that at all. And a couple of things happened in conjunction that really made this explode and changed the way the whole world happened. The first you have to go back a little bit for, and that was the age of the Renaissance. Art and culture is primarily when we think of the Renaissance, but starting 100, depending on where in the age of exploration, but starting before Da Vinci, certainly, kind of began, but through Italy and then spreading out to Europe, the Renaissance, pulled people out of what's referred to as the Dark Ages, the age when there wasn't a lot of new writing. Everyone limited. If you wanted to read, it was so that you could read the Bible, and if it wasn't the Bible, it wasn't worth reading. So you were pretty limited, and it was all Latin, and there wasn't a lot of new creative works. Because of that, the rare exceptions are hugely treasured by all of humanity. The Domesday Book in the UK, these historical records where a king would say, go out and tell me about my lands, and let's write them all down. Those few things that remain become pivotally important because there are only glimpses back. Well, the Renaissance eventually led to this rebirth, the discovery of the Greek classics that had been largely Greek and Roman classics that had been largely forgotten, but the Arabic world actually still knew of all these people. They hadn't gone through a dark age particularly. And so in their libraries were people that were known by different names, but they were the Greek and Roman philosophers and all that, and amongst all the traditional Arabic thinkers and mathematicians and writers and physicians and everybody else, there were all these Greeks and Romans. So those works got rediscovered and they began to be written. And while they may not have completely been welcomed by the church, and at that time there was only the Catholic Church, so it had the supreme voice of this is okay or this is not, and they may not have been thrilled, but because these were people that were kind of writing in a culture that eventually embraced Christianity and was their own forebearing, the Vatican City sits right outside Rome. The early popes were certainly hand in hand with the emperors, and with Constantine, you kind of had a merger of that before the empire split and the church split. But lots of deep dive history stuff. Anyway, the Renaissance came along, opened up people's eyes to, hey, books that aren't just the Bible can have value and be worthwhile. And then a guy named Gutenberg came along, and he applied movable type printing, which we've talked about in the context of Minecraft and the maps. But he started with the Bible because it was the one thing that there was a lot of market for. So he started printing with movable type, making lots of copies of Bibles, and very quickly, you sell a lot of Bibles. Ooh, you got that one covered. Well, then everybody that wants a Bible has one, two, couple, and they're feeling pretty good about that. Well, now you still got to keep paying for these expensive printing presses, and now other people have seen you do it, so they're all doing it, and other books start to come into popularity, and more people start to read. Cycle feeds itself. There's more demand then because they can read and they go, okay, well, I like these kinds of stories, whether they're the French romantic stories that kind of merge with England and tie around King Arthur and all of those legends, sagas, the Italian, the Decameron and some of those kind of early works, all of those kind of spill together. Of course, you're also rediscovering Greek tragedies and those kind of things. Shakespeare's thrown into the mix. People are just eating this up, and there's a lot of stuff that doesn't get passed down to us that what we would maybe call pulp fiction type stuff. That was maybe a little more uh, unfavorable in the eyes of the church, maybe a little bit more. You didn't advertise to all your friends that you had those kinds of books on your bookshelf, and maybe you hid them under your mattress, if you get what I mean. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. That there was certainly an appetite for all that too, just like when the internet first started. But what quickly became popular were these tales of what had been seen in the world, and it went right hand in hand with the Portuguese and then the Spanish saying, you captain that we're financing, you come back, you keep records as you go. And when you get back, you're going to tell us everything that you did. You're going to share your maps. We're going to copy them out. And the next ships that we send out, they're going to carry copies of your maps. Well, there was this huge market for it, and soon the sailors that came back, they may have gotten incredibly wealthy by our standards just from having succeeded and survived on that trip. And I heard something. I ended up watching a couple of kind of scholarly lectures, I guess you'd call them, on Magellan as a result of all this on YouTube. And one of them said that the the average sailor, everybody that, hey, I'm going to be a sailor, I'm going to go on a ship, and we're going to go to the West Indies, and at the time the Indies, we're going to go to the Spice Islands, and we're going to get spices. So they would load up their, whatever kit you could bring along. You bring along some basic, clothes, maybe a letter, some hair from your wife or something like that. You tied up with a ribbon, trinkets, those kind of things. But you'd also bring along a lot of trade goods, whatever you could get your hands on, whether it was metallic mirrors or combs or beads or metal tool, cheap metal scissors and all those kind of little things that you could get in Europe relatively cheap and were small and lightweight. You'd pull a little sack of those, and then you'd take those on your journey. You'd pack them away, whatever cubby you got on these ships. And I'm sure space was at a premium. You didn't have a lot of room, but you'd have your goods. Well, when you finally got to the far side of the world and you met these people, in addition to the ship, negotiating large scale trades, you could individually trade. So you could get a little bag of cinnamon or nutmeg or cloves or any of these spices that wouldn't grow in Europe but were in great demand and had been coming across through Asia and then the Arab world. And, think Marco Polo and some of those. These things were known in these places. It wasn't like nobody knew that China was out there, or Japan, or the Indies, or any of that. They were very familiar with it even before the Portuguese reached there by ship. But it was overland caravans, and kind of trade. It wasn't always, a Marco Polo, somebody who made the full journey himself. But you may live in Turkey, today's Turkey, and you may go as far as Iran or Iraq or India, and you may trade there, and so the goods would make the full trip, but the individual people would just do segments. Well, those would all go through Istanbul, Constantinople, right at the Bosporus, and just before all this, this explosion of exploration happened, the Constantinople was taken over by from what had still been a part of the Holy Roman Empire by what was then, the Arab invaders or the Turks, and they bridged it, came over, took took the city, and ever since it's had an Arabic influence, and that's been a part of the local government. Well, when that happened, because at the time, we're on the tail end of the Crusades. Europe is still occasionally worried that these Islamic nation states, or but they kind of all associated as a people, would launch excursions in further into Europe. They could no longer trade. Those were hostile entities, so that trade got cut off, or at least got very expensive. That led to the ships going around, and led to these stories of these wonderful places in the world, and the sailors who made a lot of money with their own personal little bags of trade goods if they survived, also found that, hey, the other thing that I didn't have to spend any space on was I have my own recollections of this trip. I can go talk to somebody who can write, or the few that were officers who were educated and literate, and kept the logs certainly could do this as well, and maybe were the first to do so. But they might write under a pseudonym or pen name, but they would account their adventures, and they would add a lot of details. They would embellish heavily to fill in the story. Incredibly cool stuff. Again, it very tough journey. A lot of people didn't make it, the vast majority, but that was happening as we sit here today. For me, is April the 23rd, and it is right about the time that Magellan is heading out from one of the his landfalls in the Philippines, where he had befriended a local ruler, done a bunch of baptisms and conversions to Christianity, because that was, some of these missions, depending on the individuals, the state backers and the bankers who finance didn't care at all. A lot of times you see, Columbus gets this a lot. He falls to his knees in the sand, plants the cross, and says, I claim this for God and country, whatever, and then they were convert or die kind of things. The the real businessmen behind these ventures, and the ones that actually made them happen, they didn't care at all. They wanted no drama. Get there, get us the spices, or whatever you're going to get us, and get back as quickly as possible, and with as much of the cargo as possible, and don't die on the way. That kind of stuff. We want to make money. That's our deal, and you could make tons of money if this worked off. It was a huge gamble, low odds of success, but hugely profitable when it worked. And it was the the back and forth. These things could be done much more slowly but surely, at a higher cost, if you let the goods move from the islands of the Indian Ocean to the Asian mainland, and then from city to city across the way. But each time they trade hands, they get more expensive. So by the time they reach Europe, they're very expensive. Well, if you carry them all yourself, you can go, oh, we added all that value to ourselves. We paid the same price in the islands for these spices that grow everywhere there. They're not worth a whole lot to the people on the islands, but you move them all the way around the world, they get really valuable as a result. So all that was happening 500 years ago. In the coming days, the 500th anniversary of uh, the call it a battle. It was kind of an oops, on Magellan's part, and he kind of let himself get potentially set up. It's a long way away, and we only have one side of the story really, because again, the uh, the Spanish and the backers of these things demanded that they keep logs, and then it ended up, and I'll leave it to you guys to kind of research the story a little bit more if you're interested, but ended up there was a huge amount of controversy. Some of the ships turned back. There were attempted mutinies, and a lot of the sailors that had initially set out with them had actually made it back to Spain, but they hadn't gone around. They turned around before they ever got into the Pacific. And when they got back and said, "Yeah, that guy's crazy. He's still going. We may never see him again," they threw him in jail. And they're like, "Yeah, well, we'll see. You got back, but you don't get to just run around." So I mean, it was a hard time, and because of that, there were these statements and inquests that when they got back, all the government officials were like, well, "What actually happened?" And they, all of the dozen or so plus people that made the return were heavily questioned. There were another about the same amount of people, I believe, who had been held at Cape Verde, so the very southern tip of Africa. As they're just about getting back, the Portuguese seized half the people as spies or traitors or whatever the thing was. I looked at this for a day on YouTube, and YouTube and Wikipedia and stuff like that. I'm not an expert scholar here, but um, so there were another substantial double digits of people that were held in a Portuguese jail in Africa that had almost made it, and eventually they put them on a ship and brought those guys back too. I don't know what all I'm sure there's political stuff going on back in the day, just like there is in our world now. But eventually those guys were questioned as well, and their statements were added to it. So we've got these very, for the time, very detailed records, and the dates and things like that are surprisingly vivid. But we only have a side of the story, and ultimately, king that Magellan had converted, had kind of a guy that welcomed him. Yeah, yeah, we're buying what you guys are selling, all this stuff. Well, he kind of said, hey, there's this other king on this other island, or same island, different port. I don't know exactly all the logistics, but since we're such good buddies and I converted and all that, and you got these cool guns and everything, why don't you go over there and take care of them? And Magellan was kind of the arrogant, I'm going to sail around the world type captain that was just the personality to say, sounds good to me, let's go. And he sails over to another island or another port, takes a little boat onto shore, and with, I think 16 total, himself included, maybe, rolls onto shore and basically bring it, let's throw down. Think of the movie The Spartans kind of deal, except it didn't, well, ultimately it worked out really the same way that the actual story of the Spartans worked out. They get mowed down. They were outnumbered about 100 to 1, and he had boasted at some point that guns made them 100 times, as good as 100 men. Yeah, now, anybody familiar with firearms of that period know it's not like they had automatic weapons. These were one shot, hope they get really scared and run away, and if they don't, you're in big trouble. And they didn't, and they were in big trouble. And they basically got very completely and fully dead, not just sort of kind of dead. So that was the end. That's coming up this week, actually. So watch your local news. Let me know, where you are. If you catch any news or commentary on that, I'm curious. I haven't seen anything yet. I've kind of chatted with my friends. But I'm like, hey, have you guys ever heard anything like, have you heard that this is coming? So many things when you get a big, 500-year anniversary like that. It's kind, at least the media picks up on it. I don't know if it's just Corona, or some of the other issues of our current world, but I haven't yet seen anything. And maybe it will. Maybe it'll be more um, in a year when the actual survivors who made it on the first round of the thing made it back and completed the circumnavigation. Maybe that will be the big deal. But I was just kind of curious, if anybody will see anything about the death of Magellan in coming up here on, I believe it is the 29th of April. I didn't jot it down. I don't have it in front of me. keep your eyes out though. Let me, throw a comment if you heard some local coverage or anything like that. If you're in an area, I've said I'm in Colorado. I'm pretty far away from oceans. We weren't touched by much of that. But if you are in a place where you went through, is there any commemoration? If you happen to be on the Iberian Peninsula, either in Portugal or Spain, or in the Philippines, or any of the other islands along the way where he caught, or as these 3 years go by where he was making his voyage, have you had local celebrations or commemorations, or do you think the guy was kind of enemy number one and spit on the ground this day? This was the day that Magellan came and ruined everything, kind of deal. Just curious. I think all outlooks are cool. Anyway, that's kind of filled up our time here in the wake of our tragic demise. Man, we were good. Nope, that's not what I wanted to do. We're still recording here, and I just pulled up the wrong window. So we will tragically say goodbye. We've got the length of time, the score that we got, why we died, all that's in the records. We are going to save and quit to title. Bigger than a bread box. That's what Minecraft is. That reminds me, topic for the next one. And now, guess what? I wasn't gonna, I was gonna play too much, but now we got to start a new world, man. World 5 coming up next. Quick break here for me, and then we'll get back at it. So join us next time. Thanks as always for. Oh, let's get the thank you up. Someday we'll get some new slides. For the amount of time I put into these, it we really didn't do a whole lot. I put a whole lot more time since into making these up. So maybe get a little bit more graphic-y stuff. I'd like to, kind of have a image for YouTube as kind of a thumbnail type deal too. Get that all loaded up. It's not keeping me from playing the game, and right now, what's keeping me is killing myself. So let's avoid that next time when you join me, or I hope you will, on Hambage's Hardcore Vanilla Minecraft. So thanks again. Have a good one.